you can only do so much growing, evolving, healing by yourself. It's in the interaction with other people, all the relationships, your children, family, romantic. That is when you're like tested on all the things that you've like acquired over the years. So dating for me has still shown me parts of myself that still require love, care, attention. The one thing that I've noticed now when those older versions of myself come up, I don't get stuck in that space as long, if that makes sense.
Welcome to Worthy of Love, the podcast for ambitious, self-aware women who desire to deeply connect to healthy love. Whether you're single or in a relationship already, this show is here to help you slow down, reconnect with your body, and to help you realize that you are capable and worthy of cultivating and maintaining healthy love, even if you have a history of toxic relationships. I am your host, Celia Antonio. I am a certified relationship coach and a certified female sexuality coach, and I am so grateful that you are here. Now let's get into the show. This week on the show, we're going to be talking about navigating dating after divorce, and our guest is Dominiece Clifton. Dominiece is a clarity coach and a business strategist on a mission to empower 1,000 women entrepreneurs and nonprofit founders. Dom guides women in defining who their dream clients are and how to serve them best. She then empowers her clients to build a business strategy that feels aligned, sustainable, and impactful. Founder of Move and Still, Dom also offers stress reduction and mindfulness services to organizations. She's passionate about storytelling, and she also hosts the School of Healing podcast and has authored Hold Space to Heal and finds her greatest joy as a proud mom to Yara and Zuri. Enjoy the show. Before we dive into talking about, I have us down for talking about dating after divorce, which I'm very curious to hear about. Before we dive into that, I'm just curious, like, what are you coming in with today? Like, what's on your heart? What is top of mind for you?
That's such a good question. What's coming up for me right now, and I'll just flow with that, is I need to slow down. Like I've been doing a lot. I've started working full time recently, and I'm trying to still balance business and like birth or keep alive the, thing that I've started birthing with my business, but trying to figure out like how to balance that with a full time role. And I'm a mom. And I have all these like side hustles outside of that. And my body today has been communicating and speaking with me and like gently letting me know to slow down. And usually, right, it starts with something as small as like the sniffles and fatigue. And then if I don't pay attention to that, it'll turn into something greater. And so I think in this moment, like as we come into this call, it's nice to have a moment away from all of the busyness and the things that I've been doing just to like be present and have, a conversation. But also like I'm just feeling like in my life right now, I need to slow down a bit. So that's what I'm bringing to our call today.
Mm. I love that you're in tune enough with your body where you're like, oh, I have a little bit of sniffles. My body's telling me something. It's time to slow down.
Yeah.
Um, that's very important.
I have learned. So I think that we are in relationship with ourselves in the same way that we are in relationship with others. And I think we oftentimes focus a lot on those external relationships, whether it's our kids, our partners, our parents, our friends, and like we pour a lot into that, but we don't often pay as much attention to the relationship with self. And one of the things that I think has been a really beautiful part of my healing journey has been this like reconnection to myself and my body. And so a lot of times, right, we get those whispers, but we don't often like listen to them and honor them. And I've just learned over time to honor the whispers before it turns
Mm,
into me being stuck in bed, calling out sick or whatever the
yeah.
case is. And so, yeah, I'm slowing down and like trying to honor what my body is telling me right now.
Mm. Are there any other ways that you make sure to stay connected with your body? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like I do a really good, I think right now I'm in an interesting season where I've been doing really well with staying connected to my body, but I don't know. I was meditating this morning and being like, I don't know if I feel as spiritually connected as I often do with my higher self. Like there are seasons where like downloads are coming and like I have a lot of clarity and like there are seasons like right now where nothing is coming and I'm like, is this thing on when I'm meditating? Like what's going on? Movement is really helpful for me. All sorts of movement. I love the gym and I love weightlifting, but I also appreciate and love yoga and just getting outside in nature and going for a walk. So movement is a really great way for me to stay connected to my body. And I think for each of us, it's different the way that our bodies talk to us, like really paying attention to what that looks and feels like when your body's trying to communicate to you. This week has been interesting because my body has just been like refusing to wake up early. Like I've been sleeping until I can't sleep anymore and I have to start my day. And usually I'm like up early and,
Hmm.
working out and like all the things. And this week it's just been like, nope, I'm literally just going to lay here and your mind can tell you one thing and the body's going to do another. And so even that is like, there's some dissonance, right, that I'm noticing and having to honor that. So I think it looks different for each of us. There's no like one size fits all. It's just like pay attention to those small whispers and the ways that your body communicates to you because what happens is when we miss those things, like that's how so many of us end up in a state of burnout. It's like your body
Yeah.
whispers to you before you get to that state. But we just have to do a really good job of paying attention to it.
Hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've noticed I have fluctuating needs of sleep.
Mm.
Since you mentioned that like this week you're sleeping longer. For me, I like to have in my Google Calendar like when I'm in luteal, follicular,
Mm.
menstrual ovulation, and I kind of like use that as a basis
Hmm.
for my calendar.
Yeah.
And always when it's luteal, like especially mid luteal all the way to first days of menstrual, I need more sleep. I can't
Yeah.
wake up super early. I can't
Hmm.
have morning calls. It has to be like at least 11 a.m. Like 11 a.m. is
Yeah.
like late morning.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's been one of my favorite ways to connect with my body by like making things more cyclical. And I'm
Hmm.
working on like what you said with your movement. I'm working on seeing like what different movement practices I need based on where I'm at in that
Yeah.
cycle. Because I have noticed I do feel a bit more like, yeah, let's do this, let's go when I'm ovulating.
Hmm.
And yeah, we just want to like take advantage of those times.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard for me, I think, because I enjoy, like I consider myself a gym rat. It's hard for me on those like cycles where my body doesn't want to do that. Like I feel like I'm like not doing enough. And so that's been like a
Yeah,
kind of an unlearning and relearning on my part of like yoga is sufficient. And I know this, right? Like I
yeah,
know all of these things, but like sometimes it's again like the overachiever in me is like, no, we got to go do the hard thing. And so
yes,
even that in itself of like honoring what my body is saying versus like, no, I'm gonna go work out. And my body is like, girl, I just want to do some restorative yoga right now. And like that's all we have energy for today.
yeah,
So even like I think a part of honoring our bodies or like being in good relationship with your body is like not necessarily what do I want to do, but like what does my body need right now? And like being
yeah.
okay with like even if it's a lighter day or a more restful day, being okay with that and knowing that like that is still enough.
Hmm. Definitely. And that's the only way we can get to this grounded equilibrium state
Yeah.
where we can maybe have those moments where the downloads come back in and all of that fun
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. I also noticed too, I'll say this last thing, like when I am feeling fatigued, nearing the point of exhaustion, I'm not as deeply connected. And so I think because I've been moving so fast, like I think that that's also part of the disconnection. It's just like my brain's kind of all over the place with all the things that I have to do. And I feel like that like internal noise and chatter and like all of that kind of like weakens the connection, if you will, with spirit and higher self. And so that is also part of why I'm feeling the need to just slow down.
Mm. Hmm.
Because I think like the mind body, connection, disconnection also impacts the spiritual connection.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for sharing all of this. I think it's so
Yeah.
relatable, like even to me and to the people listening, because, as ambitious women, we're so used to doing so much.
Hmm.
And we're so used to kind of, everything that you said about, like when you mentioned that not going to the gym on the days where your body doesn't want to do that, and then you feel like you're not doing enough. That's so relatable.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Definitely been there. And I know a lot of other people who are listening have.
Yeah.
Whether it's the gym or whatever habit thing
Mhm.
that you like to
Mhm.
do when you have the days where you can't show up for that. It's hard when the mind is like, oh, well, then you're not gonna manifest the life you want or whatever it is that's coming
Mhm.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's transition into talking about dating after divorce.
Mhm.
And I would love to just ask you what do you want to share as a preface going into this topic?
Gosh.
Like what parts of your story would you like to share?
Yeah, I'll give, I guess, just like a general overview of like how I got here to be able to have this conversation about dating after divorce. So I am now like legally divorced from my partner, ex-husband. It We had been separated for about 3 years actually before the divorce was finalized. It took a while in my state. I filed like it took me about a year and a half to file, and then it took another like almost year and a half for it to actually like process and go through.
Oh, wow.
So it's been 3 years, yeah, since we've been separated and officially divorced. I'm co-parenting. I'm a co-parenting mama, and so I have two daughters. They're 5 and 8, and their dad is very active in their life, and so we're still partners in parenting, even though we aren't like partners romantically. And
Hmm.
he's a great father, very active. We split our girls 50-50, and so they're with me a week, with him a week, and so even
That's
though,
great.
yeah, it is great. It's been a transition and obviously something that we've all had to adjust and get used to, but I'm really grateful to have his help. It's like we're still again like partners in life, even though we're not partners in that same way. So I'm grateful for him. When I separated from my ex-husband, we met when I was 17 and we separated when I was 34. So literally half my
Wow.
life, this person had been in my life. And so,
Yeah.
like he was a huge part of me and my growing up and becoming a woman. And so that was a really big loss for me, like a really big void of like losing someone who had been my person for so long.
Hmm.
And so I was intentional about giving myself time to like heal and move through my grieving process and like recognizing that like energetically like he was very much so still like on me and in me, and I didn't want to just like jump into dating and being with other men knowing that like I was still very much so like grieving the loss of this very important person in my life, and romantically he's still in my life but romantically. So
Hmm.
I was very intentional about like taking time to heal, taking time to be angry with God and, all of the stages of grief. And I was also intentional about like in that time being celibate because I felt like it was important for me again to just like feel everything and not distract by like sex and intimacy and men and, all the things.
Hmm.
So although I've been separated for 3 years, I've only been dating for like 7 months. I started dating at the top of this year, like opening myself up energetically
Okay,
again
cool.
to that process.
Still pretty fresh.
Very fresh. Lots that we could talk about. It has been interesting, I will say, dating again after being with one person. And like I want to say like in that 17-year stretch we've been on and off, like we were on and off through college and things of that nature, so we weren't like together that entire time, but there was a good like 10-year chunk of being together
Hmm.
before like married and all those things before separating. But it's been interesting like stepping back into dating as this 37-year-old version of myself. Dating is very different. The world is very different. There's dating apps now, which I think have shifted dating culture so much, and having to like reacclimate as this being to dating. So dating after divorce has been interesting. It is a new journey, one that I pray God that I'm not on for a long time because it takes a lot energetically, but it's also been like learning so much about myself, parts of me that still require like healing and, love and self-care and all of those things. And so, yeah, I'm happy to, talk and dive deeper and answer questions, but that's just kind of like the preface of me entering this conversation with you today.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I bet it's a completely different landscape because I don't think online dating existed back when you
Mm-mm.
were
It was just
17,
getting started. Yeah,
right? It was
not at all
it
at
was probably
17.
like random chat rooms or
Mm-hmm.
like something weird,
Yeah.
something that, maybe, you know what was around that time? Those ads that people would put in newspapers.
Mm.
Remember? Likes long walks on the beach and
I feel so old. Dating apps, like in my mid 20s, I feel like that's when they started to kind of take off. I remember I was living
Okay.
in New York and like I had single friends, like my ex and I were, kind of together at that time. So I wasn't on them much, but I remember like the emergence of dating apps in my like early to mid 20s. And back then it was kind of just like sex, like that was where like Tinder was popular and stuff
Mm,
like that. So it's like shifted and evolved a lot more. And I gave the apps a try for a bit. I haven't been on in a few months. I don't know, maybe in the future I'll go back on, but I'm old school and like I kind of just want to run into my person organically and I'm like praying for that to happen. The apps themselves have been like a lot to adjust to and just the pace
I
of
bet.
meeting people and like, making
Yeah, it
connections. And
sounds
so
overwhelming.
it has been a lot. I haven't been on for I think I survived I like joke with my girlfriend that I lasted a quarter. Like I was like Q1. That was all I had in me. And I was like, nope, this is not for me. So I made it 3 months. I call it the wild, wild west, the dating apps.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've also heard like in some psychology books that the reason why dating apps could be problematic is because it's the perfect environment for people with an avoidant attachment style
Mm,
because they can just, I'm not
yeah.
interested and get a new person. Like they constantly have access to new people.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, I just wonder if you've like run into
Lots.
anything
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
I have. I think it's what you said of the like avoidant attachment and it being easy to kind of like ghost and get away from things. I think the second part of that is this illusion of so many options, right? Like when you're on dating apps, you're scrolling, you don't like, but there's so like it's never ending. You never run out of people to scroll and look at, right? And then there's multiple apps. So even if you run out on this one, you can go to another one and
Mm.
find people. And so there's this like illusion, right? I really call it an illusion of unlimited options. And I think that that has also like drastically shifted dating culture because people are no longer really interested or invested in getting to know people. It's like the moment someone does or says something that you don't like, it's like, up, on to the next, kind of what you were saying. And so again, I lasted 3 months. I was exhausted. I am someone who, enjoys deep conversation and getting to know people. I'm not good at like surface level shit or people. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse here. I'm not good at surface level. I'm not good at, people who I can't like have conversation with that has depth to it. And
Hmm.
that's a lot of like what the apps are. For me, at least, they've been very surface level. And you can kind of tell immediately if someone's going to like be mentally stimulating or like just talking about what are you doing for the day, and I'm just not interested in those types of conversations. So I think that like they have been challenging for me, but I definitely agree with what you said about like attachment style and just like again this like illusion of, oh, I can just go find someone else if this person makes me upset or whatever. Whereas before dating apps, we didn't have that, right? You had to like put energy
Hmm.
and time and invest in people and get to know people organically. And so it has been a lot of starting to talk to people, them falling off, that sort of thing. That talking phase is so just like draining, having to go through that over and over again with people. And I've also, one of the other things that I think I've struggled with, where I think people who are listening to this who have experienced apps can relate, is also this like, I joke with my girlfriend that the men that I've been like meeting on the apps and like dating send their representative the best version of themselves, right? They send they show up with their best selves, but they only can keep that like facade up for 4 to 6 weeks. And then after that, you start to see this like real version of themselves. Whereas not all women, right? I can't speak for everyone, but like who I am when you get me on day one is like who I am. And that has also been a struggle of like falling for the representative or like not falling for, but like liking getting to know the representative. And then, 6 to 8 weeks in, meeting the real person and them being someone completely different. So there's been a
Hmm.
lot of that also in the dating world for me too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I bet it's even hard to have an accurate representation because like of who you are because I definitely relate to you where I prefer, deep conversation and depth and it's hard for that to come across on, with a couple of prompts and
Mhm.
photos.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't
Mhm.
understand. And just
Yeah.
some texts, because, you're talking usually in like a text-based
Yeah.
chat thing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
that must be hard for that depth to even come across.
Mhm.
Because I think maybe there's an element to this where on dating apps, people might be swiping, I don't know if left or right is the one that's a no.
I think it varies, but I want to say
Depends
like
on
you
the app.
swipe. Yeah, I was gonna say
Okay.
maybe swiping
Swiping
left.
no. People are probably swiping no on someone that they would actually genuinely like.
Mhm.
But because of the limitation of an online app, that's probably, yeah, that's
Mhm.
probably an element to that.
Mhm. It's also, and we could, I mean, spend so much time just talking about the apps. It has also become a very vain world where obviously the first thing you see is like how someone looks and, how they present. And like, again, people are picking their
There's
best. It's
always
like,
a
it's
photo
social
too with a
media.
big fish. Like, look at me, I
Oh,
caught this
yeah.
big fish. I'm a provider.
Oh, yes. I've seen a lot of those. Actually, that's so funny.
That's like the stereotype. And I'm not even on dating apps, and I know
Yeah.
this.
I have absolutely definitely seen the big fish guys. But like you pick out your best photos, right? Women
Yeah.
and men, right?
Yeah.
And that's like the social media of it all where it's like here's my highlight, here's my best self. And so people
Yeah.
kind of just like you might if you were meeting someone organically and maybe had a few minutes to make an organic connection and like talk with, even if it was just like in passing, you all stopped and it was a 2 or 3 minute, 5 minute conversation, there might be a connection that you don't feel on the app. And maybe like first impression, right? This person might not necessarily looked how you thought you wanted your partner or person to look, but you were attracted to like their energy and the conversation and like those sorts of things where you're like, I'm open to this, like I'll give this a try. On the apps, you don't get that. It's kind of just like who looks good, who looks hot, who's my type, and you kind of miss out on like those
Hmm.
other elements of connection that, you
Yeah.
would get with organic touch base or touch points. So that's also a struggle too. Yeah.
Hmm. I think some of what you're saying too about, not being on the apps after a quarter and wanting to meet someone more organically. I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who are like, yes, that's what I want.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how are you doing that?
It has not been easy. I will be so honest with you. So, I've, on social media followed a couple of like dating coaches and they give ideas for like go sit at a bar by yourself or,
Oh,
go to lots of those sorts of things of like going out to festivals and events. Essentially, I think the most important thing, and I have done this, but I think it's something that I can do better, is like go do the things that you enjoy. Like go live your
yes.
life in a way that feels enjoyable for you. And in the midst of feeling good and being out having a good time, like you will naturally attract your person. And if you're doing things that you enjoy, you'll meet someone in that setting and like they hopefully also enjoy those things. So, for example, I love like the outdoors and hiking. And so, one of the suggestions would be like, go join a hiking group, right? And
Yeah.
like, if that's an interest of yours, the goal would be for you to meet someone, single in that group who also enjoys that thing. So, like, shared connection there. But there also have been the like, depending on the type of, caliber of guy that you're looking for, airports, right? Like going to sit at the airport lounges can be a great way to meet people, or like picking a fancy hotel in your city and just like going to sit at the bar and having a drink and like making yourself look approachable and, smiling, kind of like having an open energy. I haven't done those things. I have tried to like, get out and do more of the things that I enjoy. I grew up an only child, and so I don't mind going out by myself often. I know sometimes that can be challenging for people. But one of the things that I have learned is that like, I don't know, like men, I don't like generalizing and saying all for anything, but again, like I think apps have really changed the narrative for dating. And I think that for a lot of folks that are more shy, like apps are easier to make that human
Mm.
connection or to make that initial like connection. Whereas like they are not as confident, right, to approach you in person. And so I'm sharing that to say, like, if you're with a group of girlfriends and you're wanting to meet someone, a guy is nine times out of 10 going to be less likely to come up and approach you if you're in a group of, women, because there's the rejection
Mm,
and there's also the embarrassment that comes with the rejection if you turn them
yeah.
down. So there is something in like getting out by yourself sometimes and just like allowing yourself to be in environments and spaces that feel good to you because you're a little bit more open that way. And I've heard that from like a lot of different coaches and, podcasts that I listen to. And so it's not that you have to like go out by yourself all the time, but in the midst of like, wanting to meet someone, maybe like a little bit of both, where sometimes you're out by yourself and then sometimes you're out with, girlfriends or friends and just like trying to get out the house as much as possible. So
Hmm.
that's been some of what I've been doing. The guy that I'm dating right now, I met him parking and like struggling to park and him being like, I don't think you should park here. Like you're
Oh my
probably gonna get a
gosh, I
ticket.
love it.
And that was like how we connected. And he was like, oh, you're
It's like a little
beautiful. Like,
Hallmark movie.
blah, blah, blah. And started talking to me. Um, so that's how we met. Not in any of the exciting ways that I just talked about of like going for a hike with a group or anything. But I think as much as possible, just like getting outside of your house, unless you want to date like the Amazon delivery guy or the FedEx delivery guy. Yeah.
I love that.
Which is fine, if he's attractive and you're into that.
I was going to ask you, from your marriage, I know that you said that you were in that relationship from age like 17 to I think you said 34, which is a long span
Hmm.
of time.
Hmm.
I'm curious
Yeah.
what lessons from that relationship you're bringing
Hmm.
into dating right now.
Oof. God, I love this question because I reflected on this a lot. One of the greatest lessons that I have learned that I did not know as this younger version of myself is to honor my intuition, right? To honor that voice within. And I have talked to so many women, friends, family members, my mom, like lots of women who have gone through divorce. Some are remarried, some, are still dating and trying to figure it out. But there's been this commonality of now that they are divorced or have gone through the divorce process, acknowledging that they had doubts and like questions and their intuition, like they kind of ignored the intuition and those like doubts that came up before they said yes to
Like
this
on
huge
their wedding
commitment and got
day?
married, leading up to the wedding day,
I've heard
on the
that
wedding
too. I've
day,
heard this a lot.
a
That's
lot.
so weird.
Like we ignore that inner voice that's like, this ain't it, right? And it's like,
Mm,
not that everything's going to be perfect, but if you are with someone and there's doubt, right? There's a lot of confusion or uncertainty. That confusion and uncertainty is like one of the ways that your intuition communicates to you. Because when something is a hell yes, you know what I mean? Like you genuinely know that in your gut. And like I
mhm,
said, all of the women that I have talked to who have gone through divorce are like, I had my doubts and I like question if this was my person before saying yes. But for whatever reason, like
mm,
maybe all of our reasons are different, we still like ignored that voice and move forward with that commitment. And then like later on, sure enough, like it ends up not working out. And it's like, so one of the things that I've learned is to honor that voice, right? Like if something doesn't feel good, don't force it. My reason for ignoring my intuition as this younger version of myself was because I wasn't sure with my like lower self esteem. I wasn't as confident. I didn't feel as worthy. I wasn't as sure. I wasn't sure if I would find someone better. Like when there was
mm,
doubt about, like, is this my person? Like
yeah.
knowing that this person didn't meet all of my needs as this like mid 20 something version of myself, knowing that I had this like idea in my head of what I wanted my partner to be, I still moved forward and ignored that voice and those doubts because I was like honestly thinking that this might be as good as it gets. And my ex-husband is a great person. He's a great dad. He's just not my person. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't all of the things that I wanted as this younger version of myself, but I was so fearful that if I like said yes to him, I would miss out on that. And
Mm,
so I still like moved forward with the relationship, the marriage, and then all of the things that were the doubts in the beginning, the red flags in the beginning were the things that eventually like brought our marriage to an end, if that makes sense.
Caught up to you.
So I think that that has been a big lesson for me is to not ignore my intuition when she is saying, this ain't it,
Mm-hmm.
this ain't it.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I think what you said about thinking that this is as good as it's going to get, or there won't be something along the lines of like, I won't be in a better relationship than this
Hmm.
is so common. And I
Yeah.
think it really stems from what you said about feeling unworthy
Hmm.
and feeling unworthy of love with,
Yeah.
yeah. And I would love to know, what do you think helped you shift that feeling and helped you feel more worthy of the love that you crave?
Yeah. So when people ask me, um, men that I'm dating or just in general having conversations, why did your marriage end? Like, what was it?
Mm,
There wasn't infidelity, right? There wasn't cheating. There wasn't domestic violence or any of those like big things. We just we just grew differently. And what I mean by that is who I was at the start of our marriage, I became a very different version of myself. So, like that woman that didn't know herself, didn't have self-worth, didn't really love herself. As I started to really like go through my own healing journey and go on a spiritual journey and get to know myself and just evolve and grow, I became a very different version of myself in my marriage than I was at the beginning. And I think that what happened in our relationship was that like I was evolving and growing. If you think about like us starting kind of like think about a race, right? When we got married, we started at the same point, but then like I started moving a lot faster and evolving and growing. And I would look back and like he was still at the starting line, if you will. Like we just grew very differently.
mm,
That was really like what ended my marriage. I think that it's important to not that your partner has to grow and evolve at the same rate as you, but they have to grow and evolve. And I didn't see and feel that happening in a way that like felt good for me and like who I was becoming. So that was really like there it just became so much distance between like who I was and who I am now and like who my partner is. Like the things that we used to have in common, the things that used to bond us, our interests, our shared interests, those things just evolved and I just felt like there became so much like of a gap between us.
mm,
And so when you talk about just like the lack of worthiness in the beginning versus who I became, it was just me going through my own personal like evolution and healing journey and like starting to recognize more about myself, like learning more about who I am and no longer being willing to ignore that internal voice, if you will.
mm,
um, I think another big thing that happened is that as this younger version of myself, I didn't know myself. And I was like committing to spending my life with someone else, but I didn't know myself. And so as I got to know myself, I got to understand more of like what I needed and desired in a partner, like what was important for me, which were things that were absent in the beginning of my marriage. And so I think another huge part of what became our breaking was me like reconnecting with myself and understanding the type of partner that I deserved and desired. And that wasn't present in the beginning too. I don't know if that fully answered your question, but I think that like the natural progression of me like saying yes to a spiritual calling and like feeling the need to grow and evolve is really like what helped me to find that like worthiness. And then in
mm-hmm,
finding myself and finding that worthiness, I started to realize that like, this relationship is no longer working for the woman that I've become.
mm. Yeah, I can relate to that journey. It was not in a marriage, it was in a 6 year long relationship where I started practicing yoga when I was like 24. I started practicing yoga. And at that time, I was in a 6 year long relationship. And that connection with myself made me be able to hear my intuition even more loudly. And what she was saying was, you need to leave. but it was to the point where it was so like loud that I couldn't not listen to her and I had to go. I think that's a part of the growth process where you know you've really grown and healed something if you're at the point where you can't like ignoring your intuition is no longer an option.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can I add to that?
Yes,
Two
of
things that are
course.
like top of heart for me right now as you share that. So what I didn't share when I talked about my separation, and I hope both of these like stay at the top of my mind, was that prior to separating, I had gone through two yoga teacher trainings back to
Mm.
back. So I went
Mm.
through a 200-hour and then I don't know why I did it, would not recommend it. It was extremely crazy, but then I jumped right into a 300-hour.
Oh, wow.
This was, yeah, this
I
was
just
in
have the
20.
200 and I'm now thinking 10 years later to do the
This is like that was my toxic trait. Like I love learning and doing all the things. And so
Yeah.
it's I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. But this was like, 2 years out of COVID. So a lot of things were still
Mm.
virtual at that point.
Okay,
And so
yeah.
both of them were virtual opportunities. And so I went through, 500 hours of yoga teacher training in like 7 months. Oh my gosh. The version of myself that I was before I started those two yoga teacher trainings was a very different version of myself when I finished.
It's a
And
transformative
going through it
experience
is
for sure.
extremely transformative. And
Mhm.
I didn't when I said yes to yoga teacher training, I said yes to it for business. I was like it was like professional development. I was like I want to do this because I want to like add this to my resume and be able to offer this to other people.
Mhm.
Celia, I had no idea how much like personal growth and transformation was going to come out of that. I just wasn't even thinking about it
Mm.
that way. It was just like, I'm going to go through, I'm going to
So
learn how to teach
funny
yoga,
because we went
and
in
that's going to
for
be that.
opposite reasons. Like I just went in for personal and then I was like, wow, the world needs this. Now I have to figure out how to actually feel confident enough to
That's
teach.
amazing. That's amazing. I had no idea like how much growth and transformation was going to come out of that. And coming out of that second yoga teacher training, I knew my marriage was over. Like
Mm.
it was in the it there was so much like stillness and meditation and restorative yoga. I actually remember the moment very vividly that because for I'm sharing this to say like for months before this point, I kept hearing the voice and I was doing a really good job of ignoring it and being like, nope. Like every time it would come up, I would stuff it
Mm.
back down and be like, I'm not dealing with that. Like I am not ending my marriage. I'm not walking away from this because there was so much fear around like, again, would I be able to find someone else? Would I be able to survive in the world on my own? Like there was a lot of fear around like financially, would I be okay? And so every time like that inner whisper of my intuition came up, I would stuff it back down. And then it got to a point where I was so like connected to myself where I couldn't ignore it any longer. And I was in this room that I'm in now. I meditate in this space. I was in a restorative yoga pose. I was in a butterfly, like a reclined butterfly pose. I was propped up and I heard the voice and I literally just like sat there, laid there, and the tears just started like streaming down my
Mm.
face. Like like ran into my ears because I was just it was
Mhm.
like I knew it was like the moment of acceptance of like this whisper that I've been ignoring at this point for like 8 or 9 months. I am now at a space where I can no longer ignore it. And that was the point where like maybe a week or two later, I went to my ex-husband and like let him know, like this is it for me. Like this is it. So I share that to say that like yoga and just stillness was such a huge part of my acceptance journey.
Mhm.
And it, like you said, got to the point where I literally could not ignore my intuition anymore. And there was something else that I wanted to share with you about what you said. I lost it. It'll come back to me. But that felt really important to note that like in that reconnecting with myself, right? You were talking
Mhm.
about, it got to the point where the voice just was too clear for me to continue to suppress it and ignore it. Whereas in the past, that had been a lot easier for me.
Mm. Yeah, so then I can only imagine that your journey of being celibate afterwards and really just being with yourself was probably very hard, but beautiful at the same time. And I'm curious to know, how did you know you were ready to start dating again?
Yeah. I think for me, it was like this. internal knowing of like I'm ready because I feel like for me dating is an energetic, I mean, it is. It's an energetic journey. It's an energetic exchange. And for so long, I was like closed off and unwilling to like be open in that way to like receiving, right? Opening
Mm,
myself up to receive anyone to come into my space.
mm-hmm.
And then as I started to near the end of last year, I started to just naturally feel myself like being open to that again, of being like, okay, I think I'm ready now. Um, so to me, there wasn't like anything specific that happened. It was just kind of this like internal knowing of like, I'm now ready. It's been a long time. I also knew that I was like over my ex-husband at that time. There was a point where the idea of dating another man, I would instantly like compare them to him. Like,
Mm,
if I saw someone or I
yeah.
smelled someone, I would immediately think about my ex-husband. So that to me was an indication of like there's still more to do. And not that like you're ever done because then you start dating people and like new things come up. But that like I felt like I had reached the point in my journey where I'd done all that I could do by myself. And like the next level of healing and evolving would require someone else. And that's been something that I would
Mm,
name that has been
thank you
very
for
like
naming that.
interesting about dating is that like, oh, I thought I was the most healed and evolved version of myself when I was single and celibate.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started dating men and like being triggered by things and like seeing kind of older versions of myself, come back into place and like making decisions that weren't like necessarily always from this place of worthiness and
Mm,
being like, ooh, I still got some work to do on that thing. And so like it can be easy when we're by ourselves and in our state of singlehood to be like, I am healed and evolved.
yes.
But then like it's the interaction with other people and that could be platonic, that could be romantic, but like you can only do so much growing, evolving, healing by yourself, right? It's in the interaction with other people, all the relationships, children, family, romantic, though that's like that is when I feel like you're like tested on all the things that you've like acquired over the years, maybe, or like however long it's been. So dating for me has still shown me like parts of myself that still require love, care, attention, more work, more therapy, more yoga, all of those things. The one thing that I've noticed now is that when those like older versions of myself come up, it's I don't get stuck in that space as long, if that makes sense.
Mm,
So like
mm-hmm.
in my past, I would make poor decisions and like I'd spend a lot of time in that place, right? With people who didn't serve me or being in situations that didn't serve me. And so now it's not that it doesn't happen or I don't make those mistakes. It's just that I just don't get stuck there as long as I used to. So I might still like energetically let someone in who's like not necessarily the best person for me and maybe vibrationally like, we're not necessarily a match, but I'm like drawn to them. The chemistry is strong. And like in my past, I would have like kept that person around a lot longer. Whereas now it's like, again, because the voice, the connection is so much louder and it's harder to ignore, I I hear that voice a lot clearer and I'm able to like shift and make the adjustments that are necessary without like staying stuck in that place for so long. So that's what a lot of dating has been for me is not necessarily like walking through perfectly, but just
Mm-hmm.
like the recovery has been a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. What a journey you are on right now. And I love that you mentioned the piece
What a
about,
journey. Yeah.
yeah, I love that you mentioned the piece about, doing growth and healing on your own and then it being a completely different ballgame when you're in a relationship. Because I feel like some of us get really stuck in needing to be like 100% healed before we can start dating. And while, yes, there are things that I don't want to say the word should, but could be doing, there are things that you could be doing on your own that will make
Mhm.
you a better partner for the next person you decide to be in a relationship with. However, I don't really think there is a destination of getting to this place of perfection. And
Mhm.
you're also missing out on a lot of growth if you continue to wait to be that perfect version of yourself before you start dating. Because, like you said,
Mhm.
those people will trigger parts of you. They'll show you parts of you where you're like, oh, I still need to do some work on this. And that's been such an eye-opening thing for me to see how relationships really help you grow and learn about who you are more, because I grew up pretty strict and I didn't really have my first real boyfriend until I was 18. And seeing just how much I learned in my relationships, I've been like, huh, I feel like it's kind of not unfair. It's kind of not fair to not let teenagers date. I think it's probably a good part of their growth and development, obviously with
Mm-hmm.
boundaries.
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I'm sure there's also a ton of complexities with, being in the dating world as someone who has been married, like how you said that people will ask you, like, why
Mm-hmm.
did your marriage end? I wonder also what unique complexities are there when people find out that you have kids.
Yeah. So this looks different for each of us, but one of the things that has been, I would say, like one of my non-negotiables is like I only date people that are parents. Only date men that are parents or have, at some point been parents.
That makes sense.
Um, because to me, parenting is something that I can't explain to people. It's like you just have to experience the wild, wild west of parenting and you have to kind of understand it. And it's not something that I like also want to take time to explain. Like my life is just very different. My priorities are very different. Like the way that I work and my intentionality behind the way that I live my life is very different because I'm a parent. And so that's like something that to me is like, I don't want to, I mean, it could be different for other women, but I don't want to date someone who has not been a parent. And I say has not been because I've dated like older men who, their children are to the point where they're not like, requiring so much anymore, but they've been through that journey.
Hmm.
So I haven't had that, but I also haven't had, men that aren't open to dating me because they also, they're fathers. I think that's a preference thing. If I were with a guy or on a date and something happened with my child, if there ever comes a time where I have to choose between my partner or the guy that I'm dating and my child, like as a mom, I'm always going to choose my child. Like that's always going to be my priority. And I think that like someone who's a parent, and not saying that like, people won't understand that, but like someone who's a parent understands that, right?
Yeah.
Like you understand just that the priorities are different. And I don't want to have to like have someone feel like they're competing with this other very important part of my life. And so that's just been like a personal decision for me. Obviously, like it's different for each of us.
Hmm.
One thing that I will say is that in being a divorced woman, I have noticed the difference in dating men that have been married before versus men that have not been married. And that's been interesting, right? It's a lot easier to like find at my age, men who are fathers. Whereas like dating divorced men versus men that have never been married, there's been different. It's
Oh.
almost like men that are divorced have gone through a level of like pre-grooming, if you will, that the other guys have not. And so like the ways that they navigate some things, their level of consideration, their level of communication, their level of conflict resolution, those things have been different. And so I actually prefer to date men that have been married and divorced. Now, every guy that I meet has not been married before. And so that's not like a requirement for me in the way that I want that person to have, be a father. And again,
Hmm.
we've talked about that. But I have noticed a difference. And I've had conversations with my other like divorced girlfriends who express similar things. It's like you've been in this before, like someone's already kind of done some of the like work, you know what I mean? Like you've been groomed a bit. Whereas when I've dated men that have never been married, there's not as much grooming that has happened. You know what I mean? Like they're not as considerate. I just feel like there's more like teaching and training. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of like when I meet a guy that has been married and people, people get divorced for all types of reasons. So to me, like I don't, it doesn't say anything about me or you because we're divorced now, but it's been interesting to kind of like see that difference in men as I'm dating them who've been married versus have not.
That makes me think of something I've heard in stand-up comedy before, where this woman was talking about how the ways women help women out is by sending our exes out into the world with things like better communication skills or like, here's Anthony, he talks to his mom now. Here's Kevin, he has a job. It's like we send these guys back out into the world and they've been remixed. And what you said makes me think of that because you're like, yeah, they have more consideration, better
Yeah.
conflict resolution. That's interesting. And
Hmm.
also
It
interesting that you
definitely makes
called
a
it
difference.
grooming.
At least for me, I can't speak for everyone. I know. I was like, they're not dogs, but they've been trained a bit in a different way that I've not experienced with all of the men. So yeah, there's that. So dating has been interesting. Also, I think that like, and I'll say this is important when I was younger, I think I hinted on this or like kind of talked through this when we were talking earlier. It's so important for you to know yourself as you are dating because that shifts what you desire in a partner. When you don't know
Hmm.
yourself, when you
Yeah.
haven't taken the time to heal, to build a relationship with yourself, right? You kind of just like, you take anything because you don't like it's hard for you to know what you want or need in a partner when you don't know who you are, right? So I think that like for people that are at a space where whether you've been married before or not, where you're like wanting to be in a partnered relationship, like wanting to be in a committed relationship, it's so important for us to make sure that we have a relationship with ourselves first because in understanding myself, I'm now able to understand the type of person that I need to complement this version of myself. And that I didn't have in my 20s when I was dating and when I got married. Had I known myself better, there were things about my ex-husband that I would have been like, I don't like that doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? Like I kind of just like allowed myself um to be with someone who didn't necessarily have all the qualities because I didn't know myself well. And so I will say that like it has been refreshing in a lot of ways to be dating as this older, wiser version of myself because I can see earlier on, like, if this person is compatible for me because I
Hmm.
know what I need and desire more. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That does make sense.
Yeah.
And I can't believe an hour's gone by already. Uh, I'm going to ask you a couple of closing questions. And
Sure.
the first one is, what does self-love mean to you?
Uh, I think we've talked a little bit about today, like how self-love shows up in like listening to and honoring my body, my
Hmm.
intuition, right? Like to me, those are acts of self-love. Recognizing that I need to rest and actually slowing down. Um, Hearing that maybe this person is not going to be, the best option for me and like honoring that to me, those are versions of self-love. So that's what I think about when I think about self-love. And also one thing that has been extremely important in this dating process is just forgiveness and grace, right? Because I make
Mm,
mistakes, have made decisions that when I look back, I'm like, damn, girl, you were tripping. But at the same time, like giving myself grace because I'm like human. I'm a spiritual being having this human experience, but like I came here to learn the lessons. And so, like, acknowledging, well, at least you learned the lesson as opposed to like being so hard on myself for not getting it right initially.
mm, hmm. Last question
Mhm.
for everyone
The,
who has tuned in and who's listening. Tell us more about you and your work and where people can connect with you online.
the best place to start to connect with me would be my website, Domr Clifton.com. That shares more information about who I am, the work that I do, and the things that I'm really passionate about and the ways that I support other women, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit founders. So I think that that would be the best place to start with how to connect with me if someone is interested. Thank you so much for having me. I truly enjoyed this conversation and just this opportunity to be able to reflect and share a bit about my journey.